Many people have been talking about this because it's something that is affecting our lives. Our lives have changed. We are wearing masks, we are not shaking hands, we are not, attending public gatherings the way we used to. We've been affected in one way or the other. And so it's hard not to think about what we are going through currently. And so I thought it would be good to bring some of my reflections to us from the COVID-19 pandemic. The first reflection that I would like to bring to us is that we live in a fallen world. We live in a world that is fundamentally broken. It is fallen. Unfortunately, because of the fallen nature, bad things are bound to happen, even to good people. And some theologians and different other people are asking, why would a good God allow bad things to happen to good people? Why would God allow bad things to happen to his precious people whom he loves? Well, we are living in a fallen world that is broken, and it is full of sin. And because of that, sicknesses and diseases and other bad things are bound to happen. Of course, modern technology has done an amazing job ameliorating, much of this pain and brokenness. We should, however, not delude ourselves into thinking we shall not have challenges in this fallen, broken world. In fact, Jesus said in John chapter 16 and verse 33, the second part of verse 33 says, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." In this world, you will have trouble. It is a fallen world. But take heart. I have overcome the world. Bad, strange things will happen. Only the new heaven and new earth will usher in a trouble-free era when we shall be in the presence of God, and there will be no more death, no more mourning, no more pain. There will just be rejoicing. But as for now, in this fallen world, we shall unfortunately continue to have trouble. My second reflection is that the human race is interconnected. The human race is interconnected. Can you picture this? A novel virus can jump from an animal to a person in a faraway land, travel around the world in record time, befuddle, top medical experts, and cripple the world economy. What began in Wuhan, China, has affected the entire world, including remote African villages. This shows how all human beings are connected. Job chapter 31 and verse 15 says, "Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one form us both within our mothers?" We all share this very fact in common. God is the maker of us all. Whether rich or poor, black or white, red or yellow, pink or brown, God made us all. And we are interconnected in one way or the other. We are actually living in a global village. The world has become a global village. And is closely interconnected. Global trade and travel has strongly elevated the level of interconnectedness. The world is intrinsically interconnected. And the human race, should be reminded that we can only be stronger as we work together, because we are interconnected. We need to build strong bridges and work together for the common good of all mankind, because we are interconnected. The next reflection I'd like to draw to our attention is that as human beings, we are not in total control. We are not in total control of our lives. We are not in total control of the events that surround us. Only God is. Only God is in total control. As human beings, we like feeling like, I am in charge. I am in control. I don't want anything to go beyond me. Well, whereas human beings have accomplished great things, we are not in full control of everything. We can prepare for war and develop sophisticated plans and systems. But the plain truth is that we are really not in total control of our lives and of what happens around us. Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 9 says, "In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps." Proverbs 19 and verse 21 says, "Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." We can plan, but we are not in control. We can plan, but only what God has purposed will come to pass. None of us foresaw this pandemic, a few months ago. And no one made plans accordingly. We couldn't. But even for those who are big on planning, when COVID-19 hit, all plans were up in the air, so to speak. These past few months have been a constant reminder that we must hold our plans loosely and be ready to adjust when life doesn't proceed according to our plans. We are not in total control. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, different countries had convivial projections about the growth of their economies. Unfortunately, all those projections have come to naught. I'd like to remind us that as human beings, we are not in total control. God is the only one who is in total control. The next reflection I'd like us to look at is that our lives are in God's hands. Our lives are in God's hands. This pandemic heightens our death awareness. It makes us painfully aware of our mortality. In a way, it makes us realize anew that true meaning of life isn't found in a successful career or a well-decorated house, but at the cross of Christ. James chapter 4 and verse 13 to 15 says, "Now listen, you who say, 'Today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money.' Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." Verse 15, "Instead, you ought to say, 'If the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that.'" How sobering. Proverbs 27 and verse 1 says, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth." This pandemic reminds us of the fact that our lives are truly in God's hands. When you are alive, you need to maximize on that time that God has given you. And that's my next point. We should maximize on available time. We should just maximize because we do not know for how long we are around. With COVID-19, a number of people were forced to stay home, of course. And many of those at home ended up struggling with having so much time and very little activity around them. And, quite a good number were complaining of being bored, not knowing how to use their time. But the truth of the matter is that we really don't know how much time we have here on earth, and we need to maximize on the time that we have. Do what you need to do now. Don't procrastinate. Don't procrastinate. What needs to be done today, try and do it today. Don't keep saying, I will. The only time that you surely have in your hands is now, because you do not know what is coming next. And so, realizing that our lives are in God's hands, we need to maximize on the time that we have here on earth to live for God, also honor Him and glorify Him in all we are and all we do. How are you using the time you have here to serve others? How are you using it to serve God? How are you using this time in the light of eternity? Our lives are in God's hands, and we should maximize on the time that God gives us. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 and 16. This is what it says. "Be careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. Make the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil." Make the most of every opportunity. You have opportunity to love. You have opportunity to serve. You have opportunity to reach out to somebody. Reach out to them. Evangelize to them. Show them God's love. Don't wait for next time. I'll just do it. I'll do it when I have extra time. Use the time you have well. Maximize on it. The next reflection that I would like to touch on is that you are responsible for your spiritual growth. You are responsible for your spiritual growth. As a family of believers, we were for a long time used to meeting together in various church fellowships, including the Sunday morning, worship service. And all of a sudden, this changed when the pandemic struck. Church gatherings, as we knew them then, ceased to be operational. In Kenya, we went for about 3 months without church services. And the question that comes to mind is, how can one keep their spiritual fire burning without regular, conventional church programs as we know them? I believe it is important for every believer to realize that church isn't necessarily a place you go to. It's not a building. It's not a four-walled building, four-walled tent. As true believers in Christ, you and I are the church of Christ. And whether we meet regularly in the conventional way or we meet through technology that is available, we individually and corporately need to continually make effort to grow in our walk with the Lord. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 12 says, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling." That aspect, the last aspect of that verse again. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Let us not neglect daily disciplines that help us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. These daily disciplines include Bible reading, having quiet time, having prayer, having family devotions, and stuff like that. And even when the church is not meeting in the conventional way as we know it, these habits, these disciplines need to continue. You are responsible for your growth as a believer. You are responsible for your growth as a child of God. My last point is that we must trust God at all times. That's an important reflection I've gathered during this COVID-19 moment. We must trust God at all times. Dear ones, the COVID-19 pandemic has left many of us with a great deal of uncertainty. Uncertainty about how long our personal immunity will last after we get infected, and whether vaccines will ever be developed. Uncertainty about how contagious the virus is and about the best way to treat it. Uncertainty about the future of the world economy and whether the jobs that have been lost will ever come back. Uncertainty about for how long, quarantines will continue. Uncertainty about what will happen to us, our businesses, our families, our friends. Uncertainties have been created by the COVID-19 pandemic. And in the light of all this, what can we really do as human beings? I submit to us that the best we can do is to turn to the one who is sovereign and in total control of the world. I put it to us that in the midst of these uncertainties, we need to turn to God and trust Him totally. Psalm chapter 20 and verse 7. In this particular psalm, David boldly declares and says, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Friends, the answer to the surrounding uncertainties lies not in horses, not in chariots, not in scientists, not in politicians, but in the Lord our God. He is the one who will ultimately deliver us from this pandemic. He alone knows and understands the events of history, from COVID-19 pandemic to economic meltdown to family challenges to uncertainties about your future. He knows and understands them. Yes, we can entrust our all to him and trust him fully.